My name's Guy Kestevan. I've been a professional bike and kit tester for over 25 years. And this is the brand new GT Sensor Carbon LE. So what is Sensor? It's 150mm travel fork, 140mm travel back end, 29 wheels, both ends, and almost completely carbon. You've actually got alloy chain stays, but they've added carbon seat stays now, so that gives you a 600 gram weight saving over the previous frame, and it's still relatively hefty. This is 14.9 kilos before you put the pedals on it for this medium. But where you're really winning on this bike is the value. This is the top spec one, so it's 5,000. And even if you look at something like a Kona, full price CRDL process is £7,000, so really is something of a bargain. And you're getting some real spec highlights for that money, not least top ultimate spec on the RockShox Lyric fork and my favourite super deluxe rear shock. So you got tons of adjustment, control of compression, and just a really sorted ride feel from the back end particularly. And you've got 4-bar linkage suspension system on the back, so the rear pivot is on the chainstay, and that sets up actually quite a plush side of neutral feel on this bike. You know, definitely dips under power when you really get your torque on, but that means it flows through square edges stuff really nice and easily, so doesn't mind at all if there's some steps or lumps in the climb. And the geometry is equally sorted on this sensor as well. You got 65 degree, all right, bed angle, and then 77 degree seat angle. So again, comparing it to the high tower, it's basically the same geometry of that if you ran it in tall and steep mode. And then you've got 440mm chain stays, so decent mid-length on them. And the BB is actually fairly low. I think they say it's about 344, but I've measured it at 337 with my tape, so keeps it nice and grounded through turns. Plus, feels like the shock goes quite a long way through the travel without much provocation. So yeah, again, it's more prone to hug the ground and stand up and drive through stuff, but on the plus side, it's really easy to get the front wheel up. And I have to say, you know, I've not done this line before. As you can see, pretty techy, holding the line really nicely. It isn't getting phased at all by these landings and drops coming out of nowhere. But while it does suck a bit of drive out of it up climbs, that back end is genuinely lovely and supple across patter rocks like this. You can really get the power down over those. There's very little interruption, although with the lag on the free hub you do occasionally get quite a hiccup if the suspension is compressed and then you hit a gap in the wheel. And at 15 kilo weight means It's not exactly a hustler on the flat either. But when you start heading down, it feels super capable and planted. Certainly doesn't feel like a budget bike at all. But while you don't get fancy features like internal storage on this frame, it's a trunnion shock mount on that Super Deluxe to add some more smoothness to what's already a beautifully controlled and plush shock. And you're getting full wrap chain guard on the chainstay, so that's nice and quiet. All you can hear there is the fender bouncing off the front tyre. You're getting good bit of bearings on it, so that should be plenty durable. And the whole bike just feels really composed and settled down here. Just encouraging me to leave those G2 RSC brakes alone. Let it flow, let it pop. Squeeze it into those compression minute. To be fair, there's not a ton of support. If you really bury it into a berm, it's in a plush bike rather than a pusher, but run more pressure, running 30% sag now, and put some volume spacers in, stand it up a bit more in the stroke, then I'm sure it would drive through sections like that better. The only thing I am definitely feeling now is that typical hammer of the new generation ultimate RockShox thought. That palm punch that you get is, you know, beautifully composed in terms of damping, but definitely give you a hard time in terms of low speed compression. Right, just gonna have another run at the berms at the bottom here, and I've actually put some more low speed on that rear shock, and yeah, definitely feel it standing up more. Still quite keen to lift the front, but then you've got this relatively high-rise bar on there. Yeah, much more on the ball of my feet now. Actually seems to be carrying speed better as well, which is a good thing. So kind of sagged away from Gabe on the last one. He's getting away from me now because he's a local, so he knows what's coming up, but yeah, it definitely feels like I can use those earth walls a bit more forcibly now. And winding all that low speed on has actually helped sit the bike up under pedalling as well. So it's not supple in terms of traction, but it isn't squelching down as I dig my spurs in. So she use that steep seat angle more effectively rather than having it sag away underneath me. So it's just a question of power now, getting up stuff. Oh, go on, Gabe. Right, taking one click of low speed off. That just a little bit more stitching now, a bit more suppleness, helping those tyres, because it is exo front and rear on here, so plus it's set up tube, so that's something you want to check with your shock. But yeah, really well balanced. Just sliding that rear tyre now when I'm driving my hip into it. Oh, these tracks are nice. Bit of damp, wait. But yeah, you know, it doesn't matter that you haven't got adjustable geometry when the geometry you have got is so well sorted. And home mechanics and shop mechanics will rejoice that not only has it got tube-in-tube control routing, it doesn't put anything through the headset bearings. So that's a definite win for the wrenches out there. And now it feels really well damped too. And that is probably the best thing about this Super Deluxe Ultimate Shock, is that rather than it kind of having an optimum low speeds setting, it just lets you set up loads of different characters within the same bike. So you know, you can have it hunkered down for ultimate flushness, or you can have it set up taller for a bit more drive through these berms. But you know, it's a lovely neutral blank canvas to make the most of that shock performance on this sensor. It really has impressed me tonight. You know, certainly hasn't felt like a reduced price ticket option. Far from it. If you take your time and watch that relatively low bottom bracket, just spin it rather than stamp it, actually rock crawls pretty well with the shock more open. So again, while the geometry is fixed, just through that shock and fork you've got a lot of different bike characters to set up. And you've also got several different bikes in the range as well. You've got 3 carbons, you've got 2 alloys as well, and then you've got the ST sensor, the short travel one. And the short travel bikes, similar frame, but slightly steeper geometry, and both ends, and 120mm of travel. But I'm not sure. I think this is going to be lighter based on the kit they've got. So I reckon this kind of full fat sensor is going to be the more popular one. It's right in that mid-trail sweet spot. And then you've got the high pivot, well, mid pivot GT Force as well for your enduro work. That's the real bigger hitting bike. And while that dissected tyre on the back definitely helps improve the rolling speed, you know, and that's also because you got the double 29er, where this sensor really enjoys itself is trails with a bit of gravity behind it. And it's also where you really appreciate the fact it's got features like that ISCG chain guide mount, and now the shock's fully open, it carries speed really well. Well, forget the line right through these rocky sections. No kickback, no pullback. So what you lose in climbing kick, you get back in lack of fatigue when you're pounding down longer runs or anything with braking bumps in. So even though it's only 140mm, it actually feels like more than that. I've just come off at 160 Merida, and you know, this bike does not feel that much different. And again, really good tracking accuracy through the front there. That big broad head on that top tube, not at all phased by super deep ruts, and 65-degree head angle just seems to really suit it. Just a really good poise without it being mega slack on the climbs. It's still interested in doing the twisty stuff. And also, considering it's, you know, such a good value bike, they haven't just gone completely vanilla on the frame. All the different struts and sections on it, the sculpting and moulding actually looks very like the latest Evil bikes, or even Trek's Fuel EX. So again, it's just a bike that doesn't feel or ride like a budget setup at all. Really impressed with this sensor for the money. Great to see GT back on form. So there you go, the GT Sensor Carbon LE. Like you, I wasn't really sure what to expect. It's been ages since I've had a full suspension, well, any GT on test. Used to sell loads of them back in their glory days when I was working in a bike shop in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, GT Outpost, Zascars, RTS, LTS, they were the bike to have. And, you know, I had a Forces long-termer on MBUK as well, which it's a slightly idiosyncratic suspension system, but actually did what it did do well, really well. But this bike, I mean, very conventional 4-bar suspension system and definitely on the soggier side in terms of pedaling, so you do need to prop it up on that shock. But in terms of the geometry, in terms of the frame feel, in terms of the spec you're getting for the money, this Sensor Carbon LE is an absolute belter. You know, I've had an absolute blast. You know, cards on the table. I am knackered tonight. I've just ridden myself into the ground recently, I think, and I'm really lacking in terms of power. But this, you know, despite the fact it weighs nearly 15 pounds, did a pretty decent job of getting up some techie climbs and really, really looked after me on the sense. You know, totally vice free. Again, I keep seeming to say that bikes are friendly, but again, it never put a foot wrong. Even and it plus when I was putting a foot wrong, it, you know, shepherded me back in, got me back on track, carried me through. You know, it really, really made me feel like a better rider than I probably was tonight. So big thumbs up for the Sensor LE, and thumbs up to GT Bicycles UK for letting me have this test bike before the launch, so I can get this out on the day that you'll hear about it as well. Massive thanks to Giro Cycling UK, PT's Products, Heb Troco, Crud XL fenders, Enduro bearings and Torque Nutrition. And I'm going to go back to the van right now and get some protein shake down my neck, because I am feeling shaky just holding this GoPro here. And again, but massive thanks to my Patreon subscribers, as always, for supporting the channel on a monthly basis, and they get exclusive early and ad-free edits as a thank you. And if you can't afford a small pledge each month, then please subscribe if you haven't already. Click for notifications so you know when the next video comes up, because there'll be a tech talk round on this bike as well, where you get to, where I get to talk you through the details of the frame and the spec and how it all hangs together up close in the workshop. And also there'll be plenty more bikes coming. I've got so much on test at the moment, so videos are going to be coming thick and fast over the next few months. Thanks very much for Ilkley MTB for all the fantastic trails we've been riding tonight. But for now, I've been Guy Kestevan on GuyKest TV, talking about GT's brand new Sensor Carbon LE. A really, really sorted all-round trail bike at an absolute bargain price.